The humble compact disc. These things are fantastic, even to this day. You get way better audio quality than any of this popular streaming services. You can rip and burn them with any computer with a disk drive, and these days, most of them are high enough capacity that you can stick a bunch of MP3s on them and play them in any MP3 CD player. This format has been around for more than 40 years, and it's still kicking just because of how great it is. If you're looking for a readily available physical digital media format, why would you want anything different? Well, what if it's 1999? What if you're Sony? And you remember how successful the CD was when you launched it with Philips almost 30 years prior? What if it's time for a new optical disc format for the new century? So you call up Philips for a little run back. What if this optical disc has even better sound quality than the CD? Better sound quality than humans can even detect? Well, hey, it has surround sound. What if it has surround sound? Well, they certainly thought it was a good idea. But just what to call this new audio CD? This new super audio CD. If you've never heard of this format before, or have but know very little about it, stick around. We're going to be talking about how it was designed, how it failed, and of course we'll be listening to some super audio CD music as well. The super audio CD, or SACD, was introduced in May of 1999 with the release of the first SACD player from Sony, the SCD-1. With DSD audio, 1-bit signal reproduction, and double the dynamic range of a typical audio CD, the SCD-1 playing an SACD was marketed as being capable of fully reproducing every detail of a music source, including its very atmosphere and nuance. Okay, great. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, to understand the apparent advantages of the Super Audio CD over plebeian regular CDs, we need to understand what makes them different. Both Super Audio and regular CDs are digital media formats. This means that, unlike tape or vinyl, they store their data digitally, in the form of numbers. The science behind how digital and analog signals are physically stored is complicated. I will attempt to explain in simple terms as a non-expert. Digital audio is recorded by first taking an analog signal, say an electrical signal from a microphone, which is analog, by the way. It's a one-to-one reflection of the sound signal, just in a different form, and converting it to numbers through a process called quantization. Noises that we hear in the real world can be represented as a continuous function, or in even simpler terms, a curvy sound wave. This means that, assuming the sound is changing, moving along the x-axis, or through time, will always result in a different number, or sound signal, on the y-axis. The way that this curvy line is changed into numbers is by sampling the y value at a bunch of different x values at a certain rate. This is typically expressed as the bit rate of the audio. For example, CDs have a 44.1 kHz bit rate. This means that when recording CD audio, the recording device is sampling the sound 44,100 times every second. These discrete samples, when played together, reproduce an approximate version of the original analog signal. The little gaps between the bars of the digital signal and the curve of the analog signal is experienced by the listener as noise from quantization errors. All digital recordings work like that. But where CDs and SACDs differ is the way that each sample is stored. CDs have a bitrate of 44.1 kHz. SACDs have a bitrate of 2.8224 MHz. In other words, SACDs have 64 times the bitrate of CDs. Does that mean that SACDs have 64 times better audio than CDs? No. This is because SACDs are recorded using DSD, or direct stream digital, trademark. It's a type of PDM recording, and CDs use PCM recording. This is where we get really into the weeds. Doing research for this part of the video was making my head spin, so I promise I will only go into the necessary context. When you're recording for a CD, every sample you take can be represented by a 16-bit binary number. Binary is base 2, as opposed to our normal counting system, which is base 10. So 16 bits means you can have 2 to the power of 16 numbers. In normal numbers, that means you can have 65,536 different signal levels in a standard CD recording. PDM is 1-bit audio. But how does that work? You can't make a recording by alternating sound and not sound. 1-bit DSD audio works by storing the value of the current sample relative to the previous sample. 1 means the sample has a higher signal than the previous one, and 0 means the sample has a lower signal than the previous one. Basically, more 1s means you've reached a peak in the wave, and more 0s means you've reached a trough. This presents a couple of issues, but most importantly, if your signal is only represented by 1 bit, you're going to have very, very high quantization errors because analog noises can't be simplified to all going up or all going down. That's just not how sound works. Now, luckily, math geniuses figured out a way to push this quantization noise of 1-bit audio into these ultrasonic frequencies, and they can be easily removed by digital audio converters through this really complicated negative feedback loop. If you want to learn more about this, you can look up delta sigma modulation. I spent a long time trying to understand it, and I still kind of don't. At least not well enough to feel good about trying to explain it on YouTube, and honestly, the particulars of that technology, it's not that important. What you really need to know is that 1-bit audio, in theory, has better resolution than standard CD audio, and it results in SACDs having a much lower noise floor than regular CDs. Okay, well, what's noise floor? And I promise this is the very last vocabulary word we will have to learn in this video. Noise floor is basically the background noise of audio playback. In the case of digital audio, there's often a little bit of imperceptible white noise introduced into the audio signal to reduce the jarring sound of quantization noise through a process called dithering. This is rarely noticeable, but makes a big difference in the way that sound is perceived. So, in theory, SACDs have an even more imperceptible noise. So, what does this all actually mean for the listener in the real world? What kind of incredible sounds can be reproduced from an SACD? Just how much better is it really? Well, as the market share of this format and many, many double-blind tests have proven, the Super Audio CD is actually not perceptibly better in any way. This was one of the biggest problems with SACDs. I think because so many people today listen to music on tiny Bluetooth earbuds off of terrible lossy streaming services, we've really forgotten how good CDs sound. Regular CDs were intentionally designed to cover most of the range of human hearing. Their bit depth and sampling rate were chosen because most consumers cannot tell the difference between digital and analog audio at 16 bits and 44.1 kilohertz. And the noise floor of CDs typically occurs at the absolute bottom of the range of human hearing. All things that Sony and Phillips were fully aware of because they were the ones to invent the CD. I refuse to believe that no internal testing was done before they released the format. So, they must have known that this would be a problem. So, what other advantages did SACDs come with? What kind of edge did the format have that would push Sony and Philips to actually release it? Well, 40 years before the SACD, vinyl records revolutionized consumer music by introducing stereo sound to the masses. The SACD sought to take the next step in that journey by offering true, multi-channel, surround sound on a single disc. Take that, marketing! That's new and exciting! That'll get people to buy the format! Right? Yeah, unfortunately for Sony and Philips, by 2009, the format had basically died, and physical music as a whole was already on the outs. Remember, the first iPod was released in 2001. Admittedly, that wasn't the nail in the coffin for physical releases, but it was the first big domino. People still needed to buy CDs to rip in order to listen to the music on the iPods and other MP3 players years before digital marketplaces really caught on. But they'd catch on, and pretty quickly, especially after the introduction of the iTunes Store in 2003. In my eyes, there are a few other reasons why the SACD was kind of doomed from the start, though. In addition to not really offering improvements over regular CD quality audio for the average listener, it required you opt into an entirely new ecosystem if you really wanted to take advantage of the SACD technology. Not only did you need a surround sound system, but SACDs aren't readable by regular CD players, with the exception of hybrid SACDs, which included a regular CD layer in the SACD disc that could be read by CD players, but there was very little reason to buy the more expensive SACDs to listen to CD music, unless you were very, very particular about which master you wanted to listen to and believed that SACDs had a better mix than the CD release. But you'd need to be a very specific type of audiophile to buy SACDs for that reason. So, in almost all cases, people had to buy a new SACD player to listen to the discs, which was very, very expensive when they were first released. Yes, the SACD and its associated players were definitely marketed towards audiophiles looking for high-end equipment. And I know audiophile stuff gets ridiculously, stupidly expensive. But the first SACD player, the SCD-1, originally retailed for $5,000 US in 1999. That's equivalent to $9,727 today. Imagine paying $10,000 for any music player. I'd feel like you'd be hard-pressed to find an audiophile that wouldn't balk at that value proposition. $10,000 for a player that plays discs that aren't really better than regular CDs? Even if you found one of those audiophiles that really believes that SACDs offer noticeably superior audio quality, and they definitely exist out there, I cannot believe a significant portion of them would be willing to shell out that type of money. This must have been immediately and painfully obvious to Sony, because they would change course and begin offering significantly more budget-friendly options in the coming years. For example, this SACD changer, the Sony SCD CE959, originally retailed for just $150 in 2005, which is $250 today. Not exactly super cheap, but that's an insane bargain when compared to the $10,000 SCD-1 from just 6 years earlier. Aside from the fact that most people, even audiophiles, just weren't that interested in listening to music in surround sound, not all SACDs were available in 5.1 surround sound in the first place. This is, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems with this format. It's just not always feasible to turn something that was recorded with the intention of being mixed for stereo into surround sound, even with access to the original master tapes. So, if most people can't tell the difference in the sound quality, and many discs weren't available in 5.1 surround, the special thing unique to this format, there was literally no point for most people to ever buy into this ecosystem. It just didn't make any sense. Now, they did manufacture a large catalog of multi-purpose devices, like combination SACD DVD players, which honestly seems like a great idea to me. High-end home media centers are usually already set up for surround sound, and high-end home stereos are, well, stereo. I have to assume it made sense to Sony too, because to this day, they're making Blu-ray players that can read SACD discs, like the UBP X800M2, which came out like last year. Even the first two generations of PS3s supported SACD playback, and to this day, Gen 1 and Gen 2 PS3s remain one of the only ways to rip the original data from Super Audio CDs. All this being said, it's one thing to research, learn, and talk about why formats fail. It's an entirely different thing to experience them as they were. Yes, I actually have an SACD player, and I have for a long time. This SACD player is actually my primary CD player, and when I first bought it, I thought Super Audio CD was just some branding for a higher-end CD player. I had no idea it was its own format. It wasn't until recently that I actually found out. A few weeks ago, I was cleaning up my stereo, and you might notice that this table bows a little bit in the middle. Trust me, it used to be a lot worse, so I had to completely reorganize it. I'll put a picture on the screen if I can find one. But I noticed that the back of this device has separate RCA outputs for front, surround, and center. And in trying to figure out why that was, I learned about the existence of the SACD format, and I knew I had to make this video. This stereo is stereo, 2-channel only. And that's just fine because this CD isn't surround sound. This is a stereo-only SACD. I'll probably do a follow-up video to this where I listen to an SACD in surround sound. I'm still looking for one that has 5.1 surround that's actually affordable on eBay. Hopefully that'll come around soon. So before I actually listen to this thing and before I sort of talk about the experience of listening to it, I do want to say I haven't studied music at a high level, so I'll only be able to describe the differences between these discs, if I can hear any, in layman's terms. At the end of the day, I'm just a guy that wants his music to sound good, and not much more. With that out of the way, I'm going to listen to these 2 discs on stereo with a couple of friends who will also be going in blind, and we'll discuss the experience afterwards. With that, let's give it a listen. We just listened to the Super Audio CD version and the regular CD version of The Police's Regardez de Blanc. And now we're going to hear some thoughts from myself and another listener.
Hi, I am another listener.
Okay. So, what are your thoughts now, knowing which one was the Super Audio CD and which one was the CD?
I think the Super Audio CD is, like, I don't know. I think it's a little... It sounds kind of flat. I don't know any musical terms despite being a musician-ish. But it sounded flatter. Whereas, like, I don't know, the different instruments kind of sound more distinct, especially the drums. It's very crisp, it's very punchy, and that was nice to hear. But it also, like, I think the vocals also sounds a lot clearer, whereas the regular CD, it sounds a little muffled. It's kind of like they're playing like a screen door away from you, a paper screen door away from you.
So, like, do you feel like across all, like, of, like, sounds coming out of the speakers, they're, like, the levels are more equal for, like, the bass and the treble and the mids and the Super Audio CD? Like, is that what you mean when you say, like, more flat? Because, like, for a lot of audiophiles, I guess, and for a lot of people who, like, want to listen to more, like, a sort of referencey sound, they want a sort of flatter sound. And, you know, the Super Audio CD was, especially initially, more marketed towards audiophiles, towards, like, high-end audio. Do you feel like you're hearing that the mastering of the Super Audio CD is trying to appeal to people who want a more referencey, flatter sound?
Well, I don't know about that, but I do think that there are certain, like, I don't know, it just feels like different mastering prefers, like, gives preference to different instruments or different sounds. Like, for example, like, there's just, I don't know, like, what was it? The bass was a little bit weaker.
Yeah, I think the bass on the CD was definitely a lot stronger.
Yeah, like, there was a lot, you can feel the bass's presence a lot more on the CD. But it sounded more together. Like, they were coming together as a band producing one sound.
Okay. So, you feel like the audio CD, the regular CD was sort of the different, like, instruments blended together a little bit more? Okay. Yeah. Would you say, did you feel like physically, like, if you're standing in front of these stereo speakers on the Super Audio CD, did you feel like, okay, I can hear the drums coming from, like, here, and I can hear the vocals coming from here? Or you feel like these tracks are literally more separated in space around you? Or did you feel like it was simply the mastering that made the separation higher? I'm asking, like, the technical term for this is, like, do you feel like the sound stage was wider on a Super Audio CD, or do you think it was intentionally mastered to just have the different audio tracks be a little more discreet?
Soundstage wise, I do not have a lot of experience with, but I do feel like like I'm hearing the sound coming more from like, you know, like I'm sitting kind of in front and between the two speakers, and I feel the sound on the super audio CD, like it is in front of me. It is in front of me, in this space kind of surrounding the two speakers in a space in between, and I'm sitting like in front of it, separate from it. But when I'm listening to the CD, it kind of feels like I'm in the space.
Interesting. Okay, so you actually felt a little more immersed in the CD audio.
Yes.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think part of that might have to do with the fact that you and my other anonymous listener, who is not currently with us, but I wrote down their thoughts, where it seemed like you both agreed that the CD audio actually felt a little more analog. Like a little bit softer, a little bit less digital.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one is like, I don't know, it's kind of like if you take a picture, like super audio CD, it's kind of like you take a picture and then you like heighten the sharpness or whatever. Mm-hmm. Even though like it didn't sound, it's not to the point where like you sound this and you hear like, oh, this shit's deep fried, like it's not that kind of sharp, but I don't know.
It's a crispness, right?
It's a crispness.
Right.
That's only applied to the drums and the vocal and nothing else, apparently, because you can't, the bass is just so soft.
Yeah, just so much softer than the CD. Okay. Did you, for either of them, did you feel like there was a difference in, like, the quality of the audio recording? As in, did you feel a difference in the quantization noise at all between the two?
I don't think I can give a useful answer because I don't have... Like, I wish they recorded, like, the same masters, just, like, you know, do the same, like, stereo super audio CD,
right,
and then stereo CD,
right,
same master, so I can actually hear the difference, because I feel like a lot of it could get mixed up in the mixing of things.
Yeah, in the mastering.
So I don't know, I just don't think I can... I just don't think I have a good answer to this.
Well, if you feel like you can't answer, that's okay, because there have been many double-blind studies done, and people have not been able to answer which one they thought sounded better either. So you are now joining the dozens and dozens of people who have been subjected to this test, albeit in a more scientific setting than the bedroom.
Great. That's good enough to me.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you would like to say about super audio CDs, plebeian regular CDs, or to the viewers and listeners of Deviceworld in general?
Like and subscribe.
Oh, I should ask you, can you tell the audience which one you preferred? Just like if you were to like put on this album, which one would you prefer listening to?
If I'm on the dance floor, I want the first one. I want the super audio CD.
Okay. You want the less bassy one on the dance floor.
That's true. That's a good point. I was thinking the first one because it's punchier, and so it's better for, like, a dance or, like, a party or whatever. But the second one, if, like, it's in the background, I guess also for a party. Like, you know, if we're all sitting down having dinner, the second one on the like, in the sound, so that we're all in the sound.
Right. Okay.
Now, the first one is more, I don't know, maybe if I'm, like, sitting down and actively listening to, like, oh, I want to hear how crisp the drums are. Which, I don't know, sometimes you do that, but not all the time.
Right.
And so, to be honest, like, if I don't ever have the super audio CD with me to play, I'd be okay.
Okay.
I would be okay.
You think it's more general purpose, you would... Number 2 is a little better. The CD, the regular CD is a little better. Okay.
Like, the first one it's fun for the beeps and the boops.
Okay, so the super audio CD is fun.
Yeah, but then maybe you can also just find a regular CD of music that does the beeps and boops.
Right. In terms of my listening experience to this, I do think that it is... It's hard for me to separate, because this Regardeur de Blanc regular CD audio that I played is the version of Regardeur de Blanc that I've listened to my whole life. My dad was a big Police fan. I've listened to this album, like, since I was, like, 2 years old. And, that was the version I had saved onto my iPod. That's the version that we play in the car, off the CD, off the stereo, off the CD at home. That was always the version I heard. And when I heard the Super Audio CD version, I was actually really into it, because the mastering is definitely different. That is quite noticeable, I think. Just, like, as a listener, it's like, oh, this is mixed differently. And I'm trying to separate the novelty of hearing a different and good version of an album that I like a lot versus the actual enjoyment of the music itself, you know? And I do prefer the Super Audio CD. Now, I do, as a person, I do like more reference-y, flatter music. So that is part of that. I do think it appeals a little bit to just, like, the way that I listen to music. I also don't tend to listen to music in the background. I tend to do a lot more active listening. So I think in that sense, I do like the Super Audio CD quite a bit. At the end of the day, I can't say which one is, like, objectively better, you know? Can you tell? Do you think there's one that's, like, objectively better?
There's never objectively better in
Music,
I don't think.
That's true. That's a good point.
Like, skill-wise, like, obviously, both of them, I don't know, like, at this level of, like, you know, it's the same band, and it's, like, just the mixing, it comes down to preference.
Yeah. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for watching episode 2 of Deviceworld. I hope you found it interesting. If you liked the video, please drop a like and subscribe. Leave a comment for the engagement. It really helps. And for returning viewers, thanks for coming back and watching another video. I'm really glad that you're all here. I have another video coming out hopefully before the end of the month. It's going to be about this really cool point-and-shoot camera that I bought at a thrift store. And I'll see you guys in the next one.